Good evening, everyone. My name is David Morgan. I'm Arlington's environmental planner and conservation agent. November 6, 2025, public meeting of the Conservation Commission will be conducted in a remote format consistent with an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, which further extends certain COVID-19 measures regarding remote participation in public meetings till June 30th, 2027. This meeting is being recorded, and the recording may be made publicly available. I'm putting a link in the chat now where you can find tonight's meeting materials. Please note that the Zoom chat feature may be used for questions and comments that contribute to the Commission's procedures, and if it's used otherwise, may be disabled at the Chair's discretion. Public comment period will follow each hearing. The Conservation Commission encourages attendees to ask questions and offer comments during the public comment period. Chuck Taroney is our Commission Chair. He'll facilitate tonight's meeting. Each vote is taken using a roll call vote, and we always begin with a review of the agenda and attendance that Chuck will conduct.
Thanks, David. It's 7:03, and I'm going to start with the review of the agenda. And for tonight, I am going to move the Sims Conservation Restriction and Forest Management Plan to the top of the list, and we'll follow that with a review of our meeting minutes, correspondence, which will include the AC field work, and then we'll move on to an update from Water Bodies Working Group, CPA, the Tree Committee. I don't know if we have plans for some of our updates from the Recreation Department, update maybe from David. We have one meeting tonight, or one hearing tonight, and it's 440 Park Ave. And with that, I'll take roll call attendance, and first it would be Mike Gilderscame.
Present.
And Nathaniel Stevens.
Present.
Susan Chapnick.
Here.
David White.
Here.
David Kaplan.
I'm here.
Brian McBride.
Here.
And so is Chuck Taroney is here also, and associate member Sarah Alfaro Franco.
Present.
And Eileen Coleman. Not seeing that Eileen's here, we're going to move to the Sims Conservation Restriction and Forest Management Plan, and we're going to have Nathaniel Stevens facilitate, and I think he called out David Cathcart.
Dan Cathcart. Yep.
Dan. Okay.
Yep. So thanks, Chuck. Just as a reminder for the commission, several months ago we reviewed an outline for a forest management plan for the Sims Woods. We gave it we reviewed one draft and then suggested some revisions. They came back with a revised outline, and we gave our blessing to that. Since then, the property owner and the management company have engaged Dan Cathcart to sort of build out that outline essentially into a living document with that. So we have Dan Cathcart here. Also, I saw Tyler Cormier, who's with the property owner, Adam Post, who's with the property management company, Greystar, and then Dave Lapointe from Beals and Thomas, who's been hired by, I think, the property owner to help with the forest management plan as well as the encroachment issues. But tonight we're just focusing on the forest management plan. David Morgan did circulate to you a draft of the forest management, a copy of the forest management plan in a PDF. It's a PDF of an Excel spreadsheet, so that might have been a little bit hard to follow. So I've asked Dan to screen share and as he explains the document, go through it so you can learn how to navigate it. I believe we also sent around the Excel file, but if not, we will. So with that introduction, I'll turn it over to Dan.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I hope you all had a chance to look at the document. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
You can.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. So as Nathaniel said, this is a working document, right? There's parts of it that become dependent on other parts. You know, when we finish one thing, we're going to build out, and it's going to be sort of evolving as time progresses. But you know, the main concern at this point was, you know, obviously our initial plans and getting started, right? So I created this in an Excel spreadsheet, which I know it may be confusing, but to me it was a much more workable document because I was able to basically collapse the sections and look at them on an individual area so that I'm not working on a huge document all the time. And I'm just going to quickly go through how this works in case you need some assistance in navigating through it. So right now I have over here, you can see these little numbers here. These are groupings, right? So right now I have it totally collapsed. And if I go to the second level of groupings, it breaks it out into my subtopics on in a particular area. And if I was to go all the way to level 3, then it breaks it out completely for the entire document. But as you can see, you know, working through this could be a bit cumbersome. So I've also set it up where I can break out even an individual section within the overall section. So now I'm only looking at this first one, and you know, the others are hidden. But you know, a little messing around with that, if you do want to utilize this, the kind of the flow of this is the PDF. You can see down the bottom, I have all these tabs which end up being sections on the PDF, right? And once it's all built, we could build the table of contents for it to maybe make it a little easier. But for now, what I've done is, like I said, I've worked it in this method so that as I say I want to look at my phase 1, my restoration plan only for phase 1, so that everything else is collapsed. So I have the different items here, and anywhere where there's like a little arrow here, that's a hyperlink that takes you to the relevant section. So if we're looking at our, you know, the short-term planning goals, by clicking on that hyperlink, it takes me to that page that has the goals on it. And then you can simply click the back button to go back where we were. And then as we go down and say we want to dig deeper into, you know, what are the practices going to be for the removal of the invasive species? Again, we have a little hyperlink there, and then it goes through our, you know, the steps of what that is going to entail. And again, you know, we can jump back, or if we want to look at any of the, you know, any of the other components of it, like you know, created you know, field monitoring forms of what's going to be done when we do our monitoring on a quarterly or annual basis based on that. So that's sort of the nuts and bolts of how it's set up. But again, the order of all these is what was in the PDF. So, you know, I don't know which is easier for people to work with reviewing or building out and creating this. This was the method that I found to be the most effective, so that I didn't get overwhelmed with it's a lot of content, right? So this way we can zoom in, and you can see for myself, these little check marks are parts that are done, right? So really the only section on the short-term planning left is to get the approval from the committee that in principle this is what we want to do, so that we could then you move to getting putting things out to bid, getting quotes, so on and so forth. But until we don't want to do that until the commission has given it its blessing, right? So anyway, that is really my introduction to it. I'm not going to go line by line. There's a lot of information there, but certainly answer questions. And I don't know, Nathaniel, if you want to, how you want to approach the next part of this presentation tonight.
Sure, maybe that's very helpful to tell us how to use this and how it's laid out. Can you just remind us where we are vis-a-vis phase 1 and phase 2, since I think we're sort of straddling both is my recollection, but just to remind the commissioners where we're at.
Right. Phase 1 is almost complete. Phase 1 is all preliminary stuff. The execution of so phase one is our baseline survey, which we've already done with the area maps and the tree densities and all that. What still has to happen is now we've spec'd out a soil study, we spec'd out a hydrology study, and if these are approved by the group, then we secure a vendor. So and perform these studies so we have our data and analysis to create our baseline in which to gauge our progress throughout the entire program. So those are action items based on the approval, and then we do those. So that's like the tail end of it's a 2-year plan. We're like at the end of year 2 in the phase 1 section. So with the approval, we'll get these done so that we can hit the ground next year in 2026, beginning phase 2, which is the actual implementation of the plan, getting boots on the ground and getting it done. So we're pretty good on the phase 1 part. There are still some action items, like I said, but we are ready to jump in and start these sections of phase 2 really next year, once we get these baseline pieces done with approval and getting the work done. And just to remind everyone, the target is removal year 1, following year planting in that same area while we're removing in area 2. So it's an overlap of the invasive removal, followed up the next year by planting of the replacement species. And there's a schedule of that. Where's my schedule? I did this so well, I have to find it myself now. So our overall, bear with me one sec. So oh, there we go. So our deployment schedule, which is in the PDF as well. So we're in this first 2 years of getting everything planned and approved. So then we start our invasive removals in block A, B, C, D, E, our 5 blocks. And then the following year, we start restoration planting in those areas. And I know we discussed it before, originally we had 5 areas laid out on the property, kind of, big, basically similar size, 2, 3, well, one was a weird shaped one, but 2, 3, 4, 5 were spread around the property. And we felt that as a group, trying to do like a whole area would be too impactful to that area. We didn't want to make anything too drastic. So what we decided to do was take our 5 areas and break those into 5 areas, right? And work in each area, a block, as I'm calling them, a block within each area. So if you look on our map, so this was area 1 before this, kind of the outlier area. This was area 2, area 3, etc. So what we thought we'd do is instead of trying to tackle it all being super impactful to one area, we would do a part of this part of each area in the first year. With the exception, I made a little alteration here in area 5 because it's hard to get into, so we wanted to build a little more access on the way in. But the thought was to create this sort of staggered approach so that we're not overloading an area. It'll also give us a good baseline on an indicator of efficiency of how this is going. Do we need to make modifications, etc.? Maybe not so much on the removal, but when we start planting, we can have easier areas to manage to make adjustments and things as they come up and as may be needed.
Okay, thanks.
So, yeah.
That's good. I was going to say, I do want to come back to clicking back to the soil survey and the hydrology survey that you wanted, that needs to get done, seems to be the next step. But I see So if we remember to go back to that, you're asking for approval on those, the hydrology, wildlife, these surveys. So I
here's
do.
the soil test.
Yep. Okay. And I think we had discussed that. So I want just folks to focus on that. David White, I do see your hand up. And those, but I just want to make sure that we try to at least get through those this evening so you can get going on those. And I don't know if you, well, why don't we see what David's question is and then come back to these. David White.
My question was, has the town tree warden had a chance to review this, look at it?
I don't think that I would ask David Morgan. I don't know if he sent this to.
It's a matter
yeah.
of interest, yeah.
Yeah, sure. No, we can start. Good idea on that. So thanks, David. David Morgan, if you can remember to send it to the tree warden, that would be helpful. So Dan, turning it back to you, if you could just go through this, I think some people had questions and comments about this, as I recall, last time we reviewed it. So maybe if you can just highlight changes you made or refresh our recollection, because again, I think if we can get
Sure, I think
approval on this.
before, I think in the original outline, it was kind of do a soil sample study, right? Find out what our what is our makeup of the soil, the structure, the composition, and decide if we needed any augmentations or anything to the soil to ensure a successful restoration planting. So so that's kind of the purpose. We want to make sure that what we plant is going to do well. So we want to give it the right medium and introduce things if they need to be. Excuse me, I was about to cough. I was trying to figure out where my mute is so I don't cough in your ear.
Thanks.
Sorry about that. No, wrong one. So so the purpose, I mean, that's the overall purpose. So the way that I've got it specced out would be to I created a layout of samples, because you don't just take one. We want to take 5 samples in each area, but a sample is made up of another 5 subsamples around a particular around a point, so that we can get an aggregated view of that. So so that's sort of what the first section is talking about, is what the site is and what are our concerns. Have we had any issues with soil contamination, or what is the organic component, and those particular pieces. So that's what the goal is. And so it's going to be done, this is typically done with a hand auger. You don't take it's not a huge amount of soil. Each one is about a cup per sub sample, to create your actual sample that gets analyzed for each area. So that, it's done, boots on the ground. You go out, you take samples in the areas, you aggregate them, and we send them to the lab for analysis and get back a soil profile that tells us what our macro and micronutrient areas are. It tells us, what is lacking or what is in abundance that we might concern us. What our organic material percentage is, our cation exchange capacity. Is there anything in the soil that's holding up the ability of the nutrients from being taken up by the roots? All that is done in the soil testing, so that we then can prescribe what remedy needs to be, if any, would need to be done with the soil. So what do we add at our planting sites to help establish a good establishment by the plants as we put them in. And just I know I mentioned it, but just to give you an idea, so within each of these dots would represent a sample, and each dot would be made up of 5 subsamples to give us our reading. So we get because very, very likely the soil here is different than the soil here. So, based on that, we would have a prescribed remedy based on the area that we are working in.
Awesome, thanks. Maybe give an overview of the hydrology study.
Sure. How do I get these out of order? Our hydrology study is really going to say is the main point here is what is our baseline water availability, and what do we need to augment with additional watering, but also what are we looking at is, what is our effects going to be on any erosion, and is there any, what is the infiltration rates and so forth of the soil, so that we make sure that our drainage is all proper. So it's a very specific study. It's a little out of my scope, hydrology directly. That's why I scoped this out to have someone else perform the study, a hydrology scientist. But that's really the goal there, is to ensure that at the end of the day, that the soil moisture conditions are copacetic with what we need to do there, and what if anything do we have to change on a larger level to ensure that.
Okay, great. And so would you be doing the soil work? You said the hydrology would be sent out, or does that?
No, I won't be doing the soil work either. I just understand that.
Oh, okay. Got it. Okay. All right, thanks. And then
Yeah.
third thing was the wildlife.
Yes, I think a lot of the
Study.
wildlife study might be able to be done with available research currently, but
Okay.
the wildlife study is really, I think, going to more be an ongoing monitoring is going to be, I think, more important on this, that we're not disrupting what's there. So what we want to do is get an idea of what species are there, and I think observation is going to be I think so. I did a quick search and believe that there's some available information for Arlington on some of the species and some wildlife studies that have been done that we can sort of pirate a bit. But the idea is going to be, through this first year, 2026, once we get started, is to actually do an inventory of what we're seeing species-wise, habitat-wise, where we're finding that the habitats exist, so that we don't disturb them, but also, and maybe in some cases, recreate them throughout the process of this to increase the wildlife studies, wildlife species and their habitats. Also, what we need to do to limit the human impact on an interaction with the wildlife, so that it isn't disturbing them. And really, that's kind of the focus of the wildlife study.
Thanks. The commissioners have any questions about these three studies? Susan, yes. I can guess what you're going to ask
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I don't
Maybe.
know. Maybe I'll surprise you.
Yes.
Thank you, Dan. So first I want to say I'm very impressed with the detail in this plan. I really appreciate all the time and effort you put in the details, even to show where you would take samples. I think that's critically important, because it is important from a scientific perspective to get data that makes sense and not just take one point from each location and say this represents the location, because we know that's not true. So I do appreciate that. I did have a few questions. So on the wildlife, it seems like you're doing wildlife and wildlife habitat a little bit at the same time. So would that be where also the invasive species would get enumerated? Because I didn't see that called out in a specific area.
First part, no, it wouldn't be part of the wildlife study. The invasive populations and density were done in the initial plan, and so it's actually, see how I can best show you. So in our original, some of our original maps here that I had done from the original survey, I mean, granted, it's a couple years old now, but I think for a working document, it suffices. It has both the, based on I can just tell you that all these blue dots are Norway maples, which I know we've had several discussions on how we're going to handle those, and that's, I think, outlined in the program as well. But this is where we find our invasives mixed in with our other trees, but also like areas that are heavy with knotweed or ailanthus and stuff are sort of these blocked areas that are delineated on this map. So we know it's there and what we're going to be concentrating on. But as with the if you had a chance to see it in the execution sections of this, those blocks that I talked about, we're going to remove in this block this year. That starts with a walkthrough with whoever the contractor ends up being, and myself, and individually marking trees for removal as well as invasives. Because I know box elder's invasive, but we decided that it's, for our purposes, it's not going to be invasive. So that's going to change a little bit of what we do. But the idea is that each of those sections gets walked, and basically every stem is identified as coming out or not, or what invasives in there are going to be dealt with. So it's not going to be just turned over and say, go take out the invasives. It's going to be very methodical in how they are addressed.
Susan,
Thank you.
anything?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
I just had one follow-up, which was reporting schedules. I know that this work is near and dear to a lot of our hearts on the commission because we've been involved in this conservation area for many years. So we have the opportunity to understand the different milestones and what would be the reporting functions so that we could visit if we wanted to decide to weigh in at a certain point. So I just
Sure,
wanted to get your
sure.
feel for that.
Sure. So I'm going to take, for example, our removal schedule, because I do kind of treat the removal and the planting different because they're on a staggered schedule, and there's going to be, we're looking at different things for the inspections. Not that they can't be done at the same time, and they probably will be, when we're out there, but we're collecting different data, right? So for the removals, so here's sort of our timeline for the quarterly inspections, because what we're going to do is do quarterly inspections with a sort of not a, I don't want to make it sound like it's nothing, but not a huge report. It's going to be more of a field and observation report with measurables and statistics, but then those 4 reports get combined into an annual report, more of a in-depth summary of what we've accomplished through the year. But through each of these visits, this is in this section. This is called the quarterly monitoring of invasive species control, right? So in there has what we'll be looking for. This is me, right, for all of these. So the contractor or vendor will be doing these. That's me. But a systematic walkthrough of each area, and look at our percentages of removal. Have we achieved what we're looking for in our baselines, which are spelled out too. We do have we have our statistics of what we're looking to maintain, to whether we consider it successful or not, or whether it needs adjustments and so forth. But those benchmarks and the reporting data is within the plan here under these sections. And there's also, so this is the quarterly invasive one, and then there's also protocols for our annual inspections, which is going to cover the calendar year. It'll be due at the beginning of the year, and it'll comprise a summary and compilation of the quarterly reports. And
Thank
the
you.
same thing on the planting. Once that starts, obviously different things, successfulness of the plantings, any observations that might require change, whatever. So I see hands up, so I'm going to be quiet.
Okay, I really appreciate that, Dan. I had one final question that probably is very quick. How are you planning on stabilizing the areas after the invasive removal, since the new plantings wouldn't happen till the next season?
Yeah, we'll probably do wood chips
Okay,
or some other ground, whatever. That's sort of going to be based on our hydrology example study as well. What the recommendations are, but it will be. I mean, the perimeter was silt socks, but the interior is to stabilize that ground. There's a couple different options for that.
okay.
So that'll depend on what works best for the
Right, so you're gonna do an adaptive management type of approach where it
exactly.
depends on, okay. Thank you
Yep.
very much. I'll let other people speak now. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan, for those good questions. David Morgan, and then David White, and then Brian.
I'll be very brief because all I have to say is thank you, Dan. This is an excellent plan. Really impressive to see such a full response to the problem at hand. I'm grateful for it. What I can offer is that sometimes the town conducts bio blitzes where folks go out and volunteers identify wildlife and flora and fauna, various locations around town. And to the extent you might be able to use information like that, maybe we could schedule something for Sims Woods and help you out with the identification when it comes to the wildlife phase.
I would love that. That would be fantastic because that's part of our community outreach and involvement piece. So that would be very helpful. I'll get back with you on that. How I can transfer our little conversation here onto the plan better, and we'll
Great.
do so.
Thanks, David. David White.
I understand what some of the plants that are commonly considered invasive are not described as invasive for this area. I'm concerned that they may be problematic in terms of making other plants less healthy and crowding things out. Like thickets, Norway maples can really crowd out other growth. So I need to consider basically how we balance the things so that even if some Norways are kept, other plants, the trees have room to grow as well. So I'm just concerned about that balance.
Oh, absolutely. That's a huge balance. I mean, that's why, but it's also why we're not going to just go in and wipe out every Norway maple because we do want some canopy there as well. So there's been a lot of thought on how we do that and what we choose to keep. But the whole replanting and removal piece in tandem it's a balancing act, like you said. So there is a lot of thought and how things are going to be laid out so that we don't find ourselves not succeeding and achieving what we want. So yeah, absolutely, that is important, and that's part of the ongoing follow up in a particular year is to make sure we're in the subsequent years that if we do have a few key Norway maples that have been preserved, that we're not getting little seedlings popping up underneath them, right? So it's not falling on deaf ears. That's definitely a priority of this, because otherwise, why are we doing it all?
Yeah, a balance. I'll be watching it.
Yep.
Thanks, David. Brian.
Many eyes don't make light work, but they help. So that's great.
Brian.
Oh yeah, so I was one of the ones worrying about milestones a few months or whatever ago, and this is just beyond my imagination. This is much more than I expected. So congratulations on great work here. Just one quick question. I'm not sure if you can answer this. I'm just curious about the funding of the 5 years of work, and if this is something that is budgeted, settled, and agreed to by the people who are paying for it. I assume the developer. If there are things that we have to worry about as a commission about execution not happening due to lack of budget, et cetera. I mean, can you give any insight onto that concern?
Brian, I'll just jump in and just remember that we started off with the original idea was 5 years, and then we agreed to, I think at our more recent meeting, this was going to be spread out to a longer time period. So we're more in the I think 15 to 20 period, because we partly funding because this is an expensive project, but also we didn't want to transform that forest so quickly.
I see.
I think with a balancing on that. So, and I don't know if Tyler is here and wants to pop in. He's the representative for the owner who will be funding much of this. So I don't know if he wants to
I was
chime in.
told that I had a
Or-
blank check and just keep doing
That's right,
stuff,
yeah, just
right?
keep
So
going, yeah.
yeah, whatever.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'll definitely jump in there.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
No, once this is approved, we're gonna be able to go out and get bids for that first phase. I think because it was agreed upon at the last meeting that we had a longer time frame, both for financial, but also for financial reasons, but also like Nathaniel just said, also didn't want to transform the forest that quickly. We don't really have concerns at this time in terms of funding since we're spreading it out over a longer time period.
That's great to hear, Tyler. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Brian. Chuck?
Sure. Yeah, Dan, thanks. This was a great presentation. I'm wondering that, so a lot of these mammals that live in this area, squirrel, turkey, deer, they're used to the urban life. Are you trying to create habitat to drive in, other notable, species that may, be in other towns or, something that you have in mind? I was concerned a little bit because you're looking at water, habitat, and soil at the same time, and I think any one of them can throw you off, um, off track, and you could say, well, if we don't have enough water, I can't plant this type of tree, so we won't have a lot of nuts and berries, and we'll have to go with something else. So that will, force a different species that to take up residence in this area. So how much time and thought have you put into that? Or are you waiting for these studies?
I am waiting for a bit of information, but I can tell you that um, like to your last point, like if we find the hydrology study say we don't, have enough water, what that's telling me is what do we do to have to get water? Not what do we have to alter, what do we have to change to not have a sustainable area, right? But to your your first point about other species and things, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think we want to make it as appealing to as wide a variety as possible that are, accustomed to this area, not just Arlington or Arlington 360, but the greater area, and make it as hospitable as possible to, other wildlife that might take up residence there. But as to specifics of that, I don't really have a thought on that yet.
Right. Yeah, there was a lot of Norway maples, and I'm not sure that you're gonna, like nuts and berries. Nuts and berries kind of is a broad brush, and it'll sweep across a few of the mammals. And unlike rabbits who want grasses, I'm not sure if there's gonna be much grassland up there, but it it would be interesting to find out, what you're planning for, and I can see some of those trees coming down to replace with, fruit-bearing trees.
Sure. No, there's definitely a focus on wildlife beneficial plantings to go along with it. We're not just going to put in something that just that may be native but doesn't serve multiple purposes. So yeah, that's and as we get closer, we have a lot of lists of species to choose from, which are always dependent on what's available and all that. But we're not going to leave this meeting and then now I have carte blanche to go pick what I want to plant. I mean, that'll be revisited as we get there and approved with, all right, so we're doing, X of these, Y of these. We couldn't get these, so we're going to do, this many of those and have a thought out plan. We're not just going to go plop stuff in the ground, right? Just to get this done. Again, this is too big of a project to not have it be successful for all of us. So there'll be a lot of thought into that.
Thank you.
Thanks. We're just mindful that Dan only has 5 more minutes. So David White, probably the last question.
Just a quick thought here. I think the neighbors might know what wildlife is around there. Ask them they've observed around the area. And also, as you change, you might ask them to keep track of what the changes they see in the wildlife. Get the neighbors involved in this.
Good idea. Yeah, thanks.
Send them a survey and something and go from there.
Sure.
And I'm a
well-
neighbor.
Yeah,
I'd love
excellent.
to do that.
All right, you're in charge.
Good, thanks. We have just a few more minutes. So the commission, are we ready to approve this this evening so they can get started? What are people's pleasure? Do they need more information? Hopefully, I think there's a lot of information,
Yeah,
but
it seems like we need these tests and this data first before we can get on to the next step. So
Yes.
I think that was
Okay.
what we discussed tonight. So I would feel good about voting on this.
okay. So
Approving it.
could I entertain a motion? Or I guess I could make the motion, but entertain a motion to approve the studies that we discussed, the 3 studies.
I'll make a
Second.
motion to approve
Oh.
the phase 1, that's phase 1 studies, is that correct?
Yes.
I guess that's a good way of
Yes.
that's a good
Okay.
way of characterizing
As
it.
defined by Dan Carthart
Cathcart.
in his Excel spreadsheet.
Thanks. Chuck seconded.
I'll second, yeah.
Discussion. Oh, let's see. Roll call vote. Oh, I get to do this. Chuck Taroni,
Yes.
Brian McBride,
Yes.
David White,
Yes.
Susan Chapnick,
Yes,
and I think David Kaplan is here, but off my screen.
Yes.
Great.
And Mike says yes as well.
Mike, thanks, Mike. You're not not on my screen. Okay, great. So we got a unanimous vote, and Nathaniel Stevens says yes. So unanimous vote on that. So thanks everyone. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate
Dan,
it.
yes.
And
Yeah.
thanks other
Well
members of
done.
the team.
Very
See
well
you
done.
next time.
So good.
All righty.
Good.
Thanks
All right.
so much.
thanks.
Good. Thanks everyone. Chuck, handing it back over to you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So moving right along, administrative, we're going to review the minutes of October 23rd, 2025. So David Morgan, do you have those ready?
Sorry, I was pulling up other materials here. They are. Reminder, we're using the new format. So they look a little different than usual. And Nathaniel, you had a chance to review these before they got posted, is that the case?
Believe so, right, Jackie? I've looked at these, I think.
Yep.
Yep,
Actually,
there
there's
we
a
go.
comment from you there.
Yeah, okay.
Discuss the Mayor's Monarch Pledge. Handful of updates, very few. Reviewed the native plant bylaw. Nathaniel had some clarifications to the language there. Discussed budget, which by the way was submitted this afternoon. And then we had the 40 Park Ave hearing, and I see Susan also was able to contribute some edits to this section. Tweaking language. And sorry, did we miss something there? No, that was, yes, 26 Reed Street. That's where Susan contributed those edits, and that hearing was closed, that permit issued. So adjournment, 9 p.m. Any additional changes to these?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
You need a second?
I'll second.
And that was David Kaplan. So Mike Gilskin.
Mike, you're muted. Yep.
Yeah. Mike, are you ready to vote on the minutes? I'm going to move on to Susan Chapnick,
Yes,
David White,
Yes.
Brian McBride,
I'm back.
Mike Gilskin. How do you vote on the minutes?
Yes, I approve.
Great. Brian McBride?
I'll abstain. I wasn't there.
Sure. Nathaniel Stevens?
Approve.
And David Kaplan?
Yes.
And Chuck Teroni says yes. All right, minutes are finished. Correspondence received is available to the public. For the full list, contact our conservation agent at the link that he's provided in the chat. You can also reach out to him at the office and ask for any of the correspondence that we receive between meetings. So at this point, we're going to talk about, I'm going to take some time to discuss an enforcement order that was sent out to the Arlington Catholic School, 0 Lot Mystic Street, dated 11/6/2025. It's a standard enforcement order. It asks for cease and desist on all activities. And it also asks to show up at the meeting tonight and discuss the issue. And I do see Dan Shine here, and I saw his name on a few emails, but I want to at least get our conservation agent in here to update the commission on what has happened and bring us up to date on this enforcement order. So David, I'm going to throw this back to you.
Sounds good. So the reason we have this discussion happening in the correspondence section, we received an email from a resident alerting us to the activity happening at the Arlington Catholic Field, and subsequently correspondence with Mr. Shine and others who represent the school and are working on the project. Field is jurisdictional. It's 100-foot buffer to Mill Brook at Cook's Hollow there. And the activity is removing and replacing the artificial turf carpet. I spoke with folks yesterday. Mr. Shine, Mr. Pacheco issued a stop work order. Heard that activity was ongoing this morning, and so went over and paid a site visit, delivered the enforcement order, took some photos while I was there. You can see here's first shot I took at the field. Obviously work sort of mid-stride, just panning around the field here. There's some minor grading involved with the activity as I understand it. There's a bobcat in the back there, working on the hillside. And I went over to the far end of the field. This is within the jurisdictional area, and they had installed probably 12-inch mulch socks along the perimeter here. There was some marking from tire tracks. I'm not sure if it's related, but kind of presume. This is the erosion control in the mulch bed here that was established last. We had a conversation about the migrating crumb rubber, and it's sort of deteriorated. And this shot is of the path that was installed, stone path, obviously migrating itself a little bit. So I took a closer look at the mulch there to see if there was crumb rubber. And I did find some. I mean, this is a horrible shot. I apologize for the photo quality, but you know, there's little bits of crumb in here that you can kind of make out. You know, that said, I went down to the brook and through Cook's Hollow, didn't observe any additional crumb rubber that was there. So if it did migrate, it's no longer there. And I guess I will just end this update with this quick photo. There's a little bit of stockpiling. This is outside of the jurisdictional area, but it is on site. So I will, I guess, turn it back to you, Chuck, unless there are questions before we get into the heart.
No, let's turn it back to me.
Right.
So
Chuck, I just
So
have
I-
a comment.
Well, I just wanted to make a statement before but
Sure.
go ahead, David. I mean, sorry, Nathaniel, go ahead and make
I was
your
just gonna
comment.
say, I stopped by this morning around, must have been 7 a.m. and the silt socks were not placed. Those green silt socks were not placed out. So just for time frame reference. So they seem to have been deployed between the time I was there at 7 and when David was there. What time did you email me? Around 11, I think 10:30, even earlier.
I think it was earlier. I think it
Yeah,
was
like
maybe
9.
9. Yeah.
9, yeah, okay. So those were deployed. So just FYI.
Yeah, so
Thanks, Chuck.
thanks, Nathaniel. So I was surprised when this happened. I know that we deal with a lot of companies that work on turf fields. We deal with them in all towns. All conservation commissions deal with people who are switching out and changing turf fields and crumb rubber. So the contractor should be well aware of the regulations that are revolve around such work. I have a hard time considering this maintenance work because it's a wholesale change. And even though there's a small portion, only a small portion within the buffer zone to Millbrook, I am at a loss why we were not reached out and the commission wasn't aware of this to give guidance and to understand what is the fill that's being used and what actions are being taken. So I appreciate all the calls we got from the residents of Reading, and it's nice to live in a town that
Arlington.
really cares. Oh yeah, and Arlington is a nice community too. So so shout out to Reading, but yeah, we're here in Arlington, so I apologize for that. Um, anyways, I don't know if it's Dan or Peter, but someone they let us know how we got to the point where you felt it was acceptable just to do this project because it wasn't just a phone call 2 Fridays ago to find out this company's available. Had to be in your capital plan.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
Sure.
Thank you.
It's just introduce yourself for the record.
Yes, Dan Shine, Director of Athletics. I have also with me my assistant, Rob Sarmiento, who's been involved in the process from the beginning, and also Mr. Peter Pacheco, who is the project manager for RAD Sports. That is the company that we selected to do the installation. We select, to give you a little bit of background, when we did this project almost 15 years ago, we RAD was the company that installed the original project, and that was one of the reasons why we selected them to replace the carpet was because they knew from their experience the concerns that the commission had regarding the brook and how we wanted that handled. And we had concerns about that, and we made that very clear to RAD. And that was part of why we selected them. Secondly, I will say that we were under the impression, and we obviously were incorrect, and that because it was just a replacing of the carpet, that we did not need permits, that we were not doing any new construction, and that we were replacing the carpet that is just almost 15 years old, and it needed replacing for a number of reasons, mostly for safety purposes. And that's why we're here. We started this project back in the spring, interviewing companies that do this work, and back and forth. And obviously, I don't have to tell you how long all this takes. And we got to the point where we made a decision that we would like to try to get this done uh, before the height of the winter, uh, and so it would be ready for the spring. The project was originally planned for about 3 to 4 weeks. And I believe Mr. Morgan has a copy of the scope of the work that he requested. And I can let Mr. Pacheco go through that because he's is the expert, not me. And as I said, you know, you have our sincere apologies for missing the boat here on permitting. And we have always felt that we've worked with the commission when the commission has had questions about Millbrook and the field being next to it, that we have tried very hard to work with the commission and take care of any questions they had. About 18 months ago, Mr. Morgan brought to our attention some concerns, and I believe we met the needs of the commission, and we all left after some work was done, cleaning drains, putting that, I don't know, I'm not really sure the name of that sill, wattle or whatever they call it, putting that in so that that would help of anything that could migrate toward the brook. We've had that cleaned on a regular basis so that the pellets would not migrate into the brook. And we felt that we did everything that the commission asked us to do then, and we will always do what the commission wants us to do. We believe that we are a good neighbor. This is a field for young youth. It's used by the town of Arlington soccer program. It's used by was used by Arlington High School during their renovation. It's used obviously by Arlington Catholics athletes. And there's a men's soccer league that's there on Sundays of Arlington gentlemen who play soccer that are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. So we are a group that believes that giving back to the community is very important. And as I said, we will do anything the commission wants us to do. And all I can say is I apologize sincerely for the school, for everyone involved on our end, that we did not go through the commission when we should have. If it's okay, Mr. Chairman, I'd like Mr. Pacheco to go over the scope of work, if that's okay with you.
Sure, and I appreciate that update. And Peter, could you, Mr. Pacheco, could you add into your discussion if there were any changes in the kind of infill that was used from the previous, or there was the pad, I guess? Were there any changes? Is this new material, or is it the same material that had been previously used for all those 15 years? So that's what I wanted to ask you.
It is currently the school, and I do thank everybody for the time. And just with Dan, very apologetic on where we're at. There is a recycled pad that's been there with the school for 15 years. It's exactly what's going back. And the infill is a crumb rubber that will be getting off-site with the turf recycled at a recycling center, and new crumb rubber and infill, new crumb rubber and sand will be coming in.
Sure. I think my question was, is it the exact same kind? So any updates to it, things like that? So
No,
if it was approved 15 years ago, that same approved pad, shock pad, and rubber is being reinstalled.
no, I'm sorry, Mr. No, it's going to be all new pad, new crumb rubber, and new turf coming in.
Okay. Okay. I'll follow up with a question later. But is there anything else you'd like to say? I think that we have a lot of commissioners that want to ask questions, so I'm not sure if you want to wait and answer those questions or if there's anything else you'd like to add to this discussion at this point before I'd open up to the commission.
Just going over, oh, go ahead, Dan.
Mr. Chairman, we are here tonight to answer any questions the commission has. We believe that the commission has always been very fair with us. They've had concerns in the past, and as I said earlier, we addressed them, and we will do so now. But I would like to do my very best to answer any questions that the commission has, because I felt very uncomfortable over the last few days that the stoppage had to take place, the upsetment involved with everyone and the concerns that you had, because as I said earlier, we believe we're a good neighbor and we want to do the right thing. All right. And so I believe that myself, Mr. Pacheco, Mr. Sarmiento, we're here. If the commission has questions for us, I'd like to answer them.
Sure. And with that, I'm going to go turn to Nathaniel Stevens.
Thanks very much. Thank you for the presentation and sentiments conveyed to the commission. I very much appreciate your responsiveness on this. A question for Mr. Pacheco. I didn't quite understand. Is this the exact same, I guess, brand of crumb rubber that's being used, or is this crumb rubber made up of the same constituents?
Yes. Yeah, I don't think much has changed since 15 years ago. It's pretty much what's still being used in the industry, yes.
Okay, thanks. And can you just tell us about the construction schedule? How long you've been there and how much longer you expect the project to take?
We just started Monday. And it really is just cutting the turf, rolling it, and making sure it's containable for a DOT standard for trucking. And just pretty much roll it up, and then we do remove the E-layer pad. We cut that into sections, so it's also in proper DOT standards for hauling away. And then it really is just a laser grade on the existing stone. We don't change any of the profile. We'll check the planarity, make sure that there's no deviation so it doesn't affect the athletes. And then we'll do a laser grade across the whole thing. Typically just a couple of shifts, depending on how much the planarity is. But we've already done a test. We've already done a survey over it. It looks really good. It really was just the turf that needed to be replaced. But we're going to introduce a new shock pad, a Brock shock pad, and then we're just putting the new synthetic turf over it. And that's generally it. That's the construction behind it all, with the replacements. I mean, we've done full installs, but this is just a simple replacement.
Thanks. And when do you expect to wrap up work, assuming weather cooperates?
We were working really hard with the school to try to get towards that Thanksgiving time frame, like roughly Thanksgiving, or maybe just that first week of December, and really be in a position to be done.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, thank you. No further questions. Thanks.
Sure. Thanks, Nathaniel. Susan Chapnick, would you like to speak now?
Yes, thank you. And I do appreciate from Arlington Catholic your sincerity in working with us on this. I don't know if you followed any of the discussions that this commission had with the Arlington High School and all the very detailed testing requirements we put in place in their permit for an artificial turf field with tire crumb rubber, because the new science has shown that certain materials that come off that are dissolved, certain chemicals that come off of tire crumb rubber are acutely toxic to aquatic environments, which we're trying to protect. And so this is new information that we didn't have 15 years ago. And in hindsight, if you had come for a permit, we could have had a full discussion about these kinds of concerns in protecting the jurisdictional areas, and we could have looked at potential alternatives because, for example, using a Brock shock pad, as many of you may know, there is a Brock infill, which is an organic infill rather than a tire crumb rubber infill that can pair with a Brock shock pad that would not have this specific chemical called 6-PPD quinone. So I guess that's hindsight, but I just want to tell you why we're so concerned. We're concerned because the new science has shown harm. And that's why we're concerned. So at this point, where we are is how can we mitigate that harm? And I think that's where we are right now. The first step is erosion controls, which we saw you started to put in. But I'd like to, have a full discussion in the commission. How can we prevent harm from this tire crumb rubber? And it's not just the crumb rubber pieces getting into the environment, as David showed, which will migrate. It's also rainwater percolating on them and releasing this chemical to the environment. Then the other concern I have is actually a logistical concern about removing the existing carpet with the existing infill and making sure during that removal process that none of those substances, either weathered plastic blades, which we know are breaking off because that's one of the reasons why you're replacing the field, as well as the infilled crumb rubber itself, which very easily comes off when you roll the turf up. How can we prevent that also while you're removing it from getting into the environment? So I have those two concerns.
Is there, yeah, Peter, thanks.
So
Could you answer that?
we do take a bit of the ratio of the existing infill out. And then the guys, because of DOT standards, we do have to contain it and cut it a certain way using this equipment we have. It really is just, it's hands-on and making sure, because we have to obey by exactly that, Susan. Where we just have to make sure everything stays as contained as possible on the transport. And it is by just kind of keeping it in the smaller rolls, smaller units. And we do reduce the ratio of the current infill that's in there prior to us rolling it up and getting it off site. It's a slow process. The original, it's like I explained to Dan, it's slow at first. Once we get to the pad removal and the laser grading, the job moves a little quicker. And with the new turf install.
And do you have protocols for that, like operation and maintenance plans or something for that process? Or do you take pictures? How do you monitor? How do you give us the the ability to say, yes, this was done appropriately and protective of our jurisdictional area?
It's been photos and just monitoring and reporting. We do weeklies, stuff like that. We just take the the meeting minutes and just kind of document that way up until this point on the projects I've been a part of. But we'll do whatever the town feels. Any procedures you guys want us to do, we can absolutely do.
If I can add, I think that's a great question. I didn't think of that personally before this discussion, but I think that's a great idea, that pictures are taken periodically at your request to show that we are doing this in a slow, methodical way and to prevent any migration. And I would support that 100% because we want it done right. And we would have no problem doing something like that if that's what you would like to see on a regular. We could do it every 2 or 3 days. We can do it every day. We can do whatever the commission feels is necessary.
Thank you. And I'd also like to hear from other commissioners. I see Dave Kaplan has his hand up, so I'm sure Chuck will call on him about about suggestions on moving forward, how we can make sure that this tire crumb rubber is not negatively impacting our resource area habitat values, either due to migration or due to dissolved chemicals coming off. So I'll just leave it at that right now and let other people speak, but maybe we can come back to it. Thank you.
Sure, thanks, Susan. David Kaplan?
You're muted, David.
Sorry, I thought I unmuted. I want to say, yeah, thank you for your responsiveness to David Morgan and the Conservation Commission. Appreciate your time tonight. I was just thinking along Susan's line of questions about opportunities for the crumb rubber to migrate during this process. Are the drain, I'm not 100%, I can't picture the drainage infrastructure around the field, but are the drains open, and is there an opportunity for crumb rubber leaving the site to, during the rolling up and removing in the old and adding new, is there an opportunity for that crumb rubber to get into the drainage system during this work?
Uh,
Yeah, we typically
Go ahead, Peter.
typically, yeah, we try to do all the edging once we do those cuts and try to get all the infill as much as we can off of the turf on the edging. The drains are open. Sometimes we'll typically put some filter fabric to cover the drains during just that process, and then we'll just remove it at the end of it all.
Okay. All right. Well, depending on how much care you take during that process to keep the drainage closed, I think if perhaps you could consider a post installation inspection of the drainage system and potential cleaning if it's found that a lot of crumb rubber is just sitting within that the system. That way, it would just to prevent any rainstorms from pushing that material further down gradient into the resource area.
Mr. Kaplan, Dan Shine again. When about 18 months ago, when there was some concern about the crumb rubber and migrating, along with Mr. Morgan, we walked the field. Our landscaper now cleans those drains on a regular basis for that particular reason. But I don't see why, Mr. Peter Pacheco, why couldn't we cover those drains in the early stages of this process to make sure that no crumb rubber gets in the drain? Do you think that that's possible?
100%. Yes.
And if that's a concern of the commission, that we certainly can do that. And we've worked really hard at trying to get those drains cleaned on a regular basis and keep the water flowing to the drains.
Right.
There's a curb that runs around the field, about 3/4 of the field actually, and there's a drain that runs inside the curb, and then after the drain is the turf. So it just goes, I believe that's correct, Peter, isn't it? It goes curb, drain, turf. So
Correct.
we could do that. I don't see why we can't do that,
Okay.
if that's a concern.
Yeah, no, my suggestion was based on I don't have a solid understanding of what's been done so far and whether or not certain steps of this process have provided an opportunity for crumb rubber to get into a drainage system that may or may not have been protected. So, based on your knowledge of the work so far and the fact that you already have a contractor on board who does routine cleaning and maintenance of the drain system, this could be a good opportunity to do a post-construction inspection and cleaning that may be a little bit before one of your scheduled drain cleaning, maintenance, maintenance visits.
Thank you.
Thank you, and that's all the questions I have for now.
All right, David, thank you. I see that Nathaniel Stevens has his hand raised.
Yeah, thanks, Chuck. Just a couple of things following up on what David Kaplan was saying and what Mr. Shine said. Would it be possible to have those drain baskets inspected, say, on a daily basis or more frequent basis during construction? Is that a possibility? And sort of along those lines, I understand we want to close the drains off, maybe to prevent things coming through, but I guess what happens when it does rain? I guess do you open them up for when it's raining? I'm just not sure on.
So
I think-
So the process for us every time we're on the edge is we don't roll towards the drains. We'll start from the drain and roll in. That's the first practice we do to eliminate any crumb rubber in there. We put the filter fabric around it for precautions, and then as soon as that process, Mr. Stevens is done, we'll remove the filter fabric because at that point we're really just grading the stone, and then we can and again all that is just for weather that's coming in, anything in between those processes, and then we go to install the turf. We still keep it kind of open for weather. And then when we go to infill it again to finalize, to weigh it down and finalize the turf, we'll go again and cover those drains one more time. And then
Okay.
once that operation's done, we'll remove it and we'll do a final cleanup, any disturbed areas, we'll clean everything up and then we usually just
Okay.
done.
So when you're rolling, when you say you cover the drains and you roll them, is that like that happens during the day? And then, so let's say you're on a Friday, do you leave things closed, the drains
No,
protected
we'll leave
over the
them, we'll leave them,
weekend? You
we'll
leave
leave
them
them
open?
open for the weekend, yeah.
For the
Just because
weekend.
we know we
Okay,
won't
got
have
it.
any personnel on site. Correct.
Right. Okay. And then my other question was, you say stuff is being taken off in truck. I assume, or I'm asking, I don't assume. Are you going out on, are you loading things on the Summer Street side, or I think there's an entrance by the plumbing supply, if I remember. I can't remember the street name.
There is an easement. One of the biggest challenges was logistics. The job itself, when it was handed to me, it's a simple, replacement of the turf, but we had Sergeant Martin out there with us. We had a couple of visits with the police department, Sergeant Martin in particular. We looked at all the surrounding areas, knew, our boundaries, what we could use, what we couldn't. It really is Summer Street. They're working with us. They've been great. They're going to let us on specific dates because we don't have much deliveries. It really is just going to be a day of a few trucks leaving, and then we're working for a few shifts, and then only when we have the new turf coming in. So we're working with the police department to just specify those dates. We're going to have signs out, cones out, so no one's parking on Summer Street. We've got a game plan coming through the fence there. It's a very challenging site logistically. It really is.
Right. That was it.
But Sergeant Martin, they've been great. The school, the housing authority's been really great. Like everybody's kind of working with us. But that's kind of the plan.
Good. Thanks very much.
All right, Brian McBride, hands up.
Yeah, thanks, Peter, for all this information. I'm wondering, to give us a little extra assurance, if we could be invited at some of the critical times of installation, when the rubber is removed, perhaps when it's added. Oftentimes the Conservation Commission member and David or Jackie might be able to join. Might be helpful for us to actually see what's happening and give us more confidence that things are on track, if you think it's safe and appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You guys can, if you guys want to do a daily visit, that's fine. I mean, the operation, it's just a few shifts. I mean, we do work, fairly quickly with the equipment we have. But yeah, throughout the whole process, sure.
So how would we communicate that? Could someone give David or Jackie Dan's raising his hand? Okay.
I would suggest that you contact me and then I'll arrange through Peter to take you around. If that's, and you could see the actual project in motion and probably beneficial for the long term, right? When other facilities are in this position. We can do that.
Thank you.
All right, Susan Chapnick has her hand raised.
Thank you, Chuck. So I just have a few follow-up questions based on the information that has been given to us. So this is probably a question for Peter, Mr. Pachenko. How difficult would it have been to use an alternate infill if you're using the Brock shock pad? And was that decision based? I know that the Conservation Commission can't choose products. We don't. What we can do is say we're concerned about a project and concerned about the project's alteration of a resource area. And that's where I'm coming from. So I'm asking as an informational request, Would something like an organic infill like Brockville have been possible on this field as a replacement versus using tire crumb rubber again?
To answer the question, yes. I'm not on that end of it, on the sale end of it, when those discussions are being had.
Right.
So the requests or from the customer, yeah, I mean that's typically it's whatever the customer feels they want, and if they've had success with what they've had all these years, they typically like to stay with the same. But Brockville, there's other organics that are out in the market now, and yeah, I mean that's it really is a preference. And when it gets to me, those decisions have already been made.
No, I
Um,
understand. I was asking from a technical point of view and this specific field, considering that you already had the Brock shock pad identified, which I understand is a state of the art.
it's a good pad. The school's not, yeah, they're going with the turf looks great. The watermark, like it's gonna look really sharp. Um, yeah, they're not skimping out.
Okay. All right. So that was just a question I had. I I do like all the suggestions we have about the migration of the infill. I am still concerned about the potential chemical impacts of tire crumb rubber on a resource area. And that is the same concern that I had and many others had on this commission for the Arlington High School tire crumb rubber, which is why we put so many very specific testing conditions, even testing stormwater that's coming off the field, to make sure, to see if it's safe. I'm not familiar with this field's stormwater drainage. Would there be any way to put a port somewhere to look at what's coming off in the stormwater? On your understanding, Peter, of the project? I know you're not dealing with the stormwater, you're just replacing the surface, but maybe you have a better understanding of it than I do.
Typically, when the fields are designed and built originally, there is a whole drainage system underneath, as you guys know. They usually they usually connect to what we call a clean out area. I'm not familiar on the construction 15 years ago, but I'm sure it must be a clean out somewhere. Where that's typically where you can take a look and kind of see some of the flow going on. I will say when I first did a walkthrough with the school, I mean they do maintain it well. I will say, out of a lot of schools and universities we deal with.
Thank you.
Is that you finished, Susan?
Yes, thank you, Chuck.
Yes. All right. So what I didn't understand from this conversation is I thought you were almost finished this project, but where are you at? Are you still removing turf, or have you laid down the new turf yet?
No, so Monday we just laid it out and we start marking out the field, so we know exactly the roll cut sizes we have to do again to get them on the truck correctly, and it really helps contain the rubber and the infill that's there. So Tuesday, Monday we start vacuuming, sucking up some of the infill and just kind of keeping the ratio down. We start making the cuts. We start rolling it up. It typically is a 3-4 day process. And that's really it. It's all rolled up and ready to go. We just started.
So when you roll up the infill, and, you're doing all those precautions, but some crumb rubber will get on the gravel. Is there any step at that point to try to clean it up?
Yeah, it's usually these little windrows sometimes. And we just clean it up. It's usually shovel, broom. We clean it all up right there, and then we put in silt sacks that we have on site. We seal those up, and then those go to the recycling center as well.
Sure. There was a picture distributed to the commission that showed somebody using a leaf blower. Is that something that you use? I don't know, David, if you could pull that up. I believe this was the site that it was on, but I did see that Peter kind of questioned it. I saw it. It looked like someone was using a leaf blower to move material, and it was black material.
I was over there this morning and I did see a gentleman with a leaf blower working.
So anything getting airborne is going to be hard to contain. I don't know where this happened, but I was just wondering how that fits in to your operation plan.
It really doesn't. I don't know why we would have the leaf blower there unless that was, I don't know if there was lawn maintenance going on or anything like that.
There was another picture with someone on a lawnmower also, but there's two separate pictures. So maybe if that picture can be found, we can look at it. But how do you clean up the surface area? Do you have like a little sweeper?
Yeah, we have Roscoe's that come and it's like a sweeper attachment on the equipment. And that's how we groom the field as well. It's kind of using the same
Can you see the
typical
picture
Yeah.
on the screen now?
Yeah.
Any way you can zoom in on that, David?
Not in this screen, sorry.
Okay,
That-
but we do
that-
see a gentleman holding what looks like a leaf blower and a line of debris in front of him, and pretty clean area that he's standing on and in back.
It looks like
So
it seems like the infill's rolled up where he's standing. I don't know if he's trying to get literally leaves or anything off the pad because we have to cut up the pad as well. Yeah, that's not standard. I can say that much. I don't know what happened in that moment when that picture was taken.
And that, and if I can add, Peter, that's before the fence was removed. As you notice, if we can go back to that picture for a second, if that's possible,
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I really don't. I have to ask the guys.
uh, the fence, the section of the fence we've moved so that we could get in and out with the truck, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Behind, it's behind that machine. I don't know. I know that our landscaper does not use gas blowers there any longer when they're doing the lawn. I know they use uh, uh, electric, a battery operated, I should say. But that's interesting.
yeah,
That does not
um,
look normal.
Yeah, that is not standard for us to be, unless there was some debris that got on the pad that he was containing, but that's not typical for us.
so what I see here is I see a lull holding turf. I see a porta potty and an opening in the gate. Clearly, this is part of the turf field that's being rolled up. I see someone in the background starting to roll or doing something back there, and this guy is cleaning off the surface. So I don't know who is on site and in charge, but if you don't know what's going on, Peter, I think that's a concern because we want to make sure that what we're hearing and what is happening out on the field are one and the same. And so, yeah, there's certainly, and I have to tell you that over by the truck that says TRD, that's getting towards the conservation's jurisdiction. So on the screen right, you'd be heading towards the conservation's jurisdiction.
Um,
Yeah, I don't see that as anything else as the working from RAD.
yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be discussed, and that's not typical, but that will be discussed, and that will cease.
Well, how would you clean up that area? Again, you would have some sort of sweeper or
It's
hand.
literally hand broom because the pad, it's a smooth pad. You literally just sweep up. That's why I don't know what that is. That action is being done in that picture, but it is sweeping by hand. It just kind of shovels into silk sacks.
All right. All right.
Well, we can certainly address that immediately.
Well, yeah, sure. So, Dan, what's going to happen here is we're going to probably update the enforcement order. We're probably going to have some conditions. I've written down a few, but the commission will chime in on those. And you'd have to, institute these conditions and move forward. That's one option. There may be others. I mean, I have to hear from the commission Also, there may be other things that they want or request, but before we turn back to the commission and do this a little bit more, I had some questions, but these are for David Morgan. And David, did you specifically check out the area between the end of the field and the like the fence area where the commission in years past had a vegetated mitigation area and the grass that was in front of that area? And we're heading off the field down towards Cook's Hollow and the mill stream.
Yeah, I had a couple of pictures of that. This is, I can share again.
Sure, and what I'm looking for here is like without the commission's guidance, I just want to see how this area looked and how it was kept by the contractor.
And also, this is the area, I'm sorry to butt in, but I just want to point out that there were erosion controls in this area, which we had asked them to put in 18 months ago. And those are the old degraded ones. Maybe you can show that, David, as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this green one in the picture is new or old?
Is new. That was not there this morning at 7
Okay,
a.m.
so that's brand new. So that
That's
happened
brand
today.
new. Yeah, yeah. I did see the ones that would look like they were put in 18 months ago. They're to the this picture to the right there, as I recall, down on the downward side of the slope,
There.
maybe right there. Okay. Yep.
And so here's just to the right of the shot that I took. So this shows the whole area that they planted some and mulched to try and, impede erosion, etc. And there is a close-up of the silt sock that was installed. This is just where I had highlighted where Nathaniel was describing.
Does it still have the webbing on it? I can't tell.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
How long do those silk socks, whatever the name is, I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but how long do they last? I mean, we
Well,
did
the
that.
mulch in them, at the end of the job, you're supposed to cut them, pull the netting off and dispose of that, and then you just spread out the mulch. It's the netting is the issue because you can get that and it can break down and over time, depending on what kind you buy. But this looks like it's just not any type that would break down. So that netting is going to get entangle some ducks, some geese, some birds, and so it's a concern. It's kind of outside of what we're talking about now, other than I see that it's there. I think cleaning it up would be pretty easy, but there's no need to take away the mulch. It's just the netting.
If you could make that recommendation to us, we can have our landscaper take care of that. When we did that, it was at the commission's request, and I think I don't know, maybe we can do something more permanent. I don't know. Maybe we need some suggestions.
Yeah, so I'm not sure let's hear from the commission during construction, erosion control is often needed and asked for, but after construction, when grass and other amenities are established, it's not something that sticks around. So it wouldn't be something that you would need to have there after the project's over. So unless I'm missing the point here, for someone asked for that, because there's always infill heading in the direction of Millbrook. So anyways, David, I know we kind of went off on the sidetrack, but is there anything else to report? Specifically, did you see crumb rubber in these areas and quantities?
Not much, no. There's some in the mulch, but it seemed like the cleanup job has been relatively effective, and I didn't observe any in Cook's Hollow or down by the brook. I poked around in the sand on the banks of the brook, and I followed where I thought water would be flowing down the hill and so forth, potentially carrying debris in it, and didn't locate anything really.
Sure. And did you look between at the coping area, just at the very edge of between the grass and the field? So it's like where the coping is. Was there any amount of infill in that area that had been either groomed off the field or and then neglected to be picked up? Or was that a basically clean area also?
So the path starts pretty close, yeah, like immediately at the edge of the field. And I looked within the stone path itself, but there's also, if there is any gap, it's covered by the erosion controls that were just installed. So I'll show this picture again. You can see what I mean. There's, it goes right up, and this is sloped and higher, so I think it probably meets the curb closer. I didn't venture over there to see, if that end of the field had any issues. This being the low point, I sort of figured this is where water will carry it. And as I say, I inspected the stone and the mulch and didn't find terribly much.
So this is for either Dan or Peter. How do you groom the field after a rainstorm or whenever it needs it? I don't know, just like to respread out the infill.
Peter's company comes in with a machine, kind of looks like a Zamboni,
Yeah.
like it's in a hockey arena, and it's smaller, but it's kind of it cleans the crumb rubber. It picks anything up with a magnet set up, I believe. Am I correct, Peter?
Yeah, our maintenance
picks up-
crews,
Picks up
it's
screws and a pin, let's say a pin drop, there's a magnet attached to it, and it takes the crumb rubber up and then puts it back down in an even capacity. So if we noticed there was a section, like at one time, there was a section that the crumb rubber kind of gathered in a one particular area for some reason based on the weather, then Peter's company would come in and that machine would spread that all out evenly and put it back in between the what do you call them? The grass. I call it. You know what I mean. It would put it back in the turf evenly.
Yeah.
correct.
No, that's the whole point, because it accumulates in certain areas,
Yeah.
and it will spill over. So it seems like you're on top of your maintenance, and the investigation details I heard from David seem to, also support that. So I don't have any more questions. I just wanted the commission to understand that David was out there. I asked him to really look around and be critical about what he sees in this area and report to the commission. So David, I'm going to call on you because you have your hand up when we were just talking to you.
Thanks. I just have a different question about the earthwork happening at the other end of the field and the stockpiling of dirt that's happening on what must that be, the southern side, I want to say. Wondering, I guess, what is the purpose of that work? And also, is there anything similar proposed or slated for the opposite end of the field that is in the jurisdictional area?
Are you talking about the Buzzell end of the field?
You might want to show that picture again.
The west, we call
Right.
the east end is where the building is. We consider that the east.
Okay.
I don't know if we're correct or not, but that's what we consider it.
Yeah,
And then
seems
the
right,
other end
yeah.
is the west.
Okay. Yeah. So
Well, we have
there's
found that there's some the irrigation system, watering system, there's some pipes cracked in that area, so we're gonna repair those. All right. We're looking to have an area where we can store the field hockey goals and soccer nets when different sports are used on the field. But there is no, and Peter, you can help me with this. There is absolutely no soil being removed from the field. Everything there is going to be used. And you have an area coming down, is it Water Street where the plumbing company is? Is that Water?
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
I think so.
When the water comes down Water Street, okay? There's a reason why it's
Aptly
called
named.
Water Street,
Yeah.
I think. I mean, it comes through there like you wouldn't believe. I mean, we have a drain up at the top where the open gate is, where the plumbing company is. But that is in desperate need of cleaning, and that's on the landscaper's responsibility to take care of that. But the water comes down that hill and it washes all the gravel onto the field. So we're trying to come up with a solution to that. And you know, we think that the solution might easily be to put sod in there or grass and not have crushed stone. Originally, 15 years ago, we thought that was a great idea. We thought maybe ambulance access, if need be, they would use that. It didn't work out. If we ever have to have an ambulance now, they come through the opposite side of the housing building. They come off of Summer Street and in through a gate over there. So we're trying to resolve that issue. So any loom that we have extra, we're gonna use that in that area there, but nothing is gonna be taken off site. All right, just so you feel comfortable with that.
Thanks. And there's nothing towards that eastern end by the housing building that's proposed for like removing soil or
No.
replacing it or anything? Okay, thanks.
That's a good point. And I think what David's asking is, do we have the full scope of this project? So there's the field and that component. It sounds like there's some sprinkler work that's happening. Is there any other land, ground disturbance or any other work that we don't know about that's happening out here?
Nothing other than what I explained. But
Okay.
if you would like that in writing,
No, I
we
don't
could
need
do
it.
that.
I just want to make sure that you know, and oh yeah, we actually are doing some footings because we're doing different lighting now. Bosco's coming by.
No.
Okay, and that's what I was talking about, like another project that we don't know about.
No.
Susan Chapnick.
Thank you, Chuck. So as I said before, if this had come for a permit to the Conservation Commission, this is in our 100-foot, it's called adjacent upland resource area to Millbrook, which I'm sure you're aware of. And I appreciate you wanting to protect that. And that's what we talked about, don't migrate, the tire crumb rubber, et cetera. Well, that requirement in our bylaw, our local regulations, also calls for an alternatives analysis, which of course you didn't do because we didn't go through that process. But in the alternatives analysis, we would have asked you to consider practicable alternatives, which is why I was raising to Peter Pacheco of RAD whether or not you could use an alternative infill, which would at least give me a peace of mind that this very toxic chemical 6-ppd quinone that comes off of tire crumb rubber, it is not a question of whether it comes off. There's scientific evidence that it does come off. There's even new evidence this year in 2025, peer-reviewed papers. Is there any possibility, Mr. Shine, that your school could consider using the Brock infill with the Brock shock pad, and that would eliminate that concern that we have of this chemical that's acutely toxic to the aquatic environment?
Before I answer that, oh, I appreciate your question.
Mhm.
We did a lot of work in this area last spring. We went to a lot of facilities that had the infill fill that you're talking about. There's a couple of them. One is wood chips, I think. Another one is, am I correct, seashells or something? All right. We went to a number of schools that last year that were playing games on relatively new fields with those infills. And the thing that all the athletic directors came back to us when we asked them how they felt about what their decision was at the time. Most of them all said the only thing they were concerned about is they felt that it was very slippery for the athletes, and they felt they were getting more knee and ankle injuries than they ever had before. And that is kind of one of the reasons we kind of pushed to stay with the crumb rubber. And even though we knew that it was a big concern, from the commission, that we felt we were doing our best to accommodate your needs as a commission and to make it as safe as possible for all that are involved. So I think that that's what we decided when we got to that point. And of course, at the point, different companies came in and made their proposals. Every one of the companies recommended the crumb rubber. So that's why we went with it.
All right, thank you for that explanation. And you might also be aware that Arlington Artificial Turf Study Committee report recommended against crumb rubber. Just putting that out there.
Yeah.
But okay, thank you.
And am I correct? And I don't know this for a fact, so I'm asking, I guess. And I think you mentioned it earlier. Am I correct that the new fields at the high school are crumb rubber?
Yes, and
Okay.
they have many controls on them.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that this field doesn't have. But yes, that is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, I'd like to go back to the commission. This is an enforcement order. We're not taking any questions from residents. So I'd like to hear what the commission would like to do. If anyone has any ideas, we have a enforcement order in front of us. We've developed a bunch of what I'm going to call conditions. They can be added to the enforcement order, or there's some other options available also. So I see Nathaniel Stevens' hand is up, so I'm going to turn to Nathaniel to see what he has to say.
I just have a procedural point. I think we need to vote, or we need to decide whether we're going to ratify this enforcement order that's issued before we start amending it. So just a procedural step.
Sure. So why don't we take that right up now? And
I'll
does
make
someone
a motion to approve the enforcement order that David issued this morning.
Can I have
I
a second?
second.
Susan Chapnick seconds. I think Mike Gilderscame left the meeting. So I'm going to say Mike Gilderscame, wait a few minutes.
No,
and
I
then
don't
move
see him
on
on the
to-
screen. Yep.
Yeah, and move on to David White.
Yes.
And then David Kaplan
Yes.
and Brian McBride
Yes,
and Nathaniel Stevens,
Yes.
Susan Chapnick,
Yes.
and Chuck Taroni says yes. Okay, so we've ratified the enforcement order, and now we're going to talk about next steps. Any commissioners have some suggestions on next step? It's possible to ask for a notice of intent. It's possible to ask for just amend the existing enforcement order that's in front of us, or the commission can decide that moving forward with an enforcement order is not needed. So again, Nathaniel Stevens has his hands up.
My preference is to amend the enforcement order, excuse me, and with the conditions in it that we would want, rather than making them file stop work and filing a notice of intent. I think I'd rather handle it through an enforcement order anyways. It's better for us, it's better for them, in terms of getting the project done. One thing I would like to see is more frequent inspection of those things, baskets, I want to call them, that we had installed last when we last discussed this with them 18 months ago or so. I don't know if that's a weekly thing, a daily thing, but it seems like that they're not, since construction's going on, I think they should be monitored and emptied if needed more frequently. So I would suggest daily, but I don't know if that's asking too much. I sort of have a feeling it's maybe a 10-minute job, but I don't do that job, so I don't know. So I have to defer to Mr. Shine and Mr. Pacheco on that, but I would like to see what they would be amenable to in terms of more frequent inspection.
So is that the stormwater basket? I'm just
Storm,
kind of
yes,
throwing-
the storm is the
Yeah,
stormwater.
That's
Basket.
may I speak?
Sure.
That's the drain that goes around the outer edge of the field. And I think Peter, help me out. Would you say, is it 4 inches wide? Is that about correct?
Yeah, it's about 4 inches wide. Usually it can range anywhere from 6 to 10 inch deep. I haven't really investigated these, but yeah, it's an ACO drain.
Right. So it has plastic, I don't know if they're plastic or what they are, but they're covers with holes, with slots. I think if you get real close with a couple of those pictures, you can actually see them, and they pop off. And what the landscaper does for us is he goes around and cleans out that basket. I think Mr. Stevens, you mentioned.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Now it's not a 10-minute job.
No, it sounds like
Okay.
I thought it was just popping like a
Yeah.
small basket in two places. Okay,
Right.
it's going all along the entire field.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
Right.
All right. So yeah, that's more involved.
It can be done, but I would say daily would be probably unreasonable to have that done.
I would agree.
But I think our landscaper is very, very good in this manner, and he's got kids at the school. He was the original person that cleaned out the drains when Mr. Morgan asked us to do that 18 months ago, and to do it on a regular basis. So he's the guy that can do it. I think he can do it in a reasonable amount of time, but he's probably going to have to put a guy down there for 2 or 3, 4 hours, probably a half a day to clean it out. But that's something we need to do, and we will do. Simple as that.
How often is it happening now?
Right now, he's been doing it. He's been checking them every second or third cut of the grass. So that's probably, once or twice a month.
Okay.
So would weekly be reasonable during the construction period? Is that too much to ask?
I think so.
Is that, Nathaniel, is that a check or a clean weekly?
Well, check and clean if needed.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can do
Okay.
that.
Okay.
I actually agree with that. I don't have any questions about that.
Okay.
I think that's the right way to handle it. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so I see Susan Chapman had her hand up next.
Thank you, Chuck. I've just been keeping a running list of some of the things that we mentioned, so I thought I would just add them here. I agree.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
Let's get Brian McBride in, because I think that's more of a final statement that you're doing, and we would roll on
Okay.
that, but Dan,
Sure.
Brian McBride might have a question.
Sure.
Yeah, mine was more along what I mentioned earlier, the proper handling of the crumb rubber so that when it is removed and placed down, there's procedures so it doesn't spill, blow, etc. I don't know if there's a written document that we could get. And then I'd also be curious to do an inspection of that process at some point, so that we're satisfied it's done safely and properly.
So like the O&M, like an operation maintenance plan to handle the crumb rubber during, so that sounds like it would be something that Peter would have, or like Rad Industries would have, some sort of, do you have a written process? I mean, how do you train your employees on how to handle this material?
It's really just, these guys just get trained with the foremans, the guys that have been doing it for us for a few years and not or whatnot. We can crumb up. I mean, it really is just, it's just a verbal teaching on site of these guys kind of containing it and keeping it. But we can keep a documentation going for this project. We can come up with something.
Yeah, I'm just imagining some one-page thing, Peter, with a picture or two that, do's and don'ts so that the rubber is contained and doesn't make it to the.
Yep.
You
Okay.
mentioned earlier is it MassDOT standards for transportation? I tried finding those during our conversation. I couldn't.
It's really just for heights. It really is just a certain amount of like length you can roll up so it doesn't exceed a height. So they can strap it down. Probably that's all it is for DOT.
Gotcha.
What the guys do is just really, again, they reduce the infill ratio because it does weigh it down. If you keep all the infill that's there currently and roll it up, it's a lot of weight. So we do remove that, and we have those in separate trucks and silt sacks. The surplus that creates.
All right, Susan.
Thank you. So, Mr. Shine, you suggested, and I think Mr. Pacheco suggested as well, covering the drains with filter fabric, during construction process, when it's not raining. I think that's a good idea. I know they have to be taken off and put back on, but I think that's
Susan, can we just do, like, instead of explaining each one, can you just give us a list of the conditions you want on the order of conditions? We've already
Sure.
really discussed how wonderful these things are.
Sure. So I would like to see filter fabrics covering the drain.
Mhm.
During removal of the field that exists now and during placement of the infill in the new field. I would like to see the besides what Nathaniel said, I'd like to see photos, weekly photos of the site, what's happening, of taking off the materials, putting on materials, whatever's happening at that point. Weekly reports to the commission or to David. I'd like to see since we said weekly inspections of the perimeter drains, I would also like to see a post-construction inspection as David Kaplan recommended. Of the drains and a final cleaning of that and documentation that was done. I would like to see that as part of the mitigation for this, that there is a cleanup of the degraded erosion control netting in the mulch area to help that area reestablish. I would like to put in that no leaf blowers can be used to get rid of any solid materials on site. I'd like to recommend or recommend to the commission, and we could talk about this because we didn't, that there be some additional mitigation plantings in that mulch area, because the mulch area seems very sparse. It's not doing well. And if it had additional plantings, that would enhance the wildlife habitat function in that area, and that might be something that we could recommend. And then finally, because it seems that with all good intentions, some things are not happening the way we like to see them happen. I'd recommend an environmental monitor. We've recommended environmental monitors at other projects that we thought were sensitive, and that might be a way of giving us a sense of security that we're protecting our resource area during construction.
Okay, let me chime in from there. So we would,
Sure.
and on top, some additional conditions would So clean out the stormwater baskets. You might have mentioned that. I want to call out when the drains are being cleaned because some commissioners want to see that process happen. This is with your landscaper. And then we would like a construction schedule if it hasn't been already delivered to us, so we understand that. And then David and Mr. Shine or Peter, I lost you, but anyways, or Peter from the company would look at milestones for when we want to have site inspections. And then we would clean out those storm areas when you're finished. So a complete cleaning would happen at the final end of the job. And let's see. So Nathaniel said he'd like to have the baskets cleaned and checked weekly, but I would like them to be maintained as it has happened. So every 2 to 3 mowings, whether they look good or not, they're going to get cleaned. So at the same schedule, plus we're checking more frequently during construction. And then we were asked for a 1-page do and don'ts on an operation plan, and that would be something from Peter Pacheco. And Nathaniel Stevens, you have your hand, and you have your hand up again. So please.
Yes, I do. Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to discuss Susan's idea of the environmental monitor because I feel like we're getting enough information that we requested. Otherwise, I'm not sure. I don't know. I feel that's a little bit much to request because I usually think of environmental monitors when there's more dirt being moved around and or wetlands, like or plantings
on
going
site.
on and
No,
stuff.
I hear
But
what you're saying. I
I
guess I'm
think
trying to find a way to get insurance that we're not going to have these aberrant things happen like the leaf blower. We just noticed it. It was in a picture. They didn't authorize that. You know, the vendor didn't authorize it. The school didn't authorize it.
Right.
So
right.
I don't know how to prevent that from happening. I guess maybe I'm opening up suggestions on how to
Yeah.
prevent that from
Yeah.
happening.
So I would
Or-
say I don't agree with the environmental monitor. What I see here and what I see through the inspections of David and others and the testimony that we've heard tonight, that they're doing their best. They're doing a lot better than other places, as Peter has told us. I actually believe him. So I would say that any monitoring should be done through staff and and we would just incorporate that in what I was saying about a construction schedule, and then they develop milestones. Maybe Jackie or David can develop milestones where they want to be out there and inspect. Let's say after the first day of rolling up the field, and just to see what the crumb arbor looks like and how they're taking care of that, and then maybe like I said, like when you develop milestones, they're going to decide when it's important to be out there. So that's between staff. Any other
Sorry,
concerns or
Chuck,
questions?
just to correct one thing you were saying, you were talking about baskets and then separately the drain system. I was corrected on the baskets. So I've sort of dropped that idea about baskets because
There's no baskets. There's
no
just a
baskets.
perimeter drain all the way
yeah,
around
the
the
perimeter
field.
drain.
There are
So
no.
Yeah, so as
just
Susan knows,
clarify that.
I should know, huh? Yeah, so
I
You
didn't know.
saw them.
yeah, up close, yeah.
You saw that
Uh,
when you discussed with Dan Shine 18 months ago what to do.
Yeah.
You saw them.
Yeah, so if they're being cleaned out regularly, because it's not just the crumb rubber, we're concerned about whatever the slurry is that's kind of created through that bit of water that sticks around at the bottom, and then slurry that happens, and then that first flush of the storm just blows that through the system. And so a condition to discuss about when construction's going on is we may want a review of these storm areas, these drains, prior to rainstorms, because we want to make sure they're clean, because that's when things get flushed. So I'll add that to the list. Any others? Any motions?
Make a motion to amend the enforcement order with those conditions on it.
I have a second.
Second.
I assume that was Brian McBride. So
And I'm sorry, just to clarify, to allow the work to resume. So we lift the stop work order and allow work to continue under these conditions. Just to clarify, I assume that was understood, but I want to be explicit about that.
I'll re-second.
Thank you.
Okay, David White,
Yes.
Susan Chapnick,
Yes.
David Kaplan,
Yes.
Brian McBride,
Yes.
Nathaniel Stevens,
Yes.
and Chuck Tirone says yes. All right, Mr. Shine, Peter, where's it? Yeah, there you are. Pacheco, yeah. Thank you for coming tonight, and for all the testimony that you gave us. I appreciate it. And you'll look forward to seeing Jackie and David out there often. And I think the first step is that construction schedule and those milestones, so that they need to know when things are happening, so they know when to be out there. So let's develop that right away and get it to staff. Thank you.
Can I ask something to clarify about the schedule with work resuming? I presume we just want to make sure that those drains are covered with the filter fabric, first thing in the morning, and then they can get back to work tomorrow. Is that what we're expecting?
I think so. Yeah, it sounds like Mr. Pacheco was saying they cover those drains anyways. I mean, that seems to be part of their procedure.
Great.
Correct. Yeah, that's what we're getting going.
Yeah.
Right.
And
All right,
that,
thank you.
I'd just like to thank the commission. You've always been very fair to us, and we appreciate that very much. And I want you to know that we want to work with you. We want to make the facility the best possible facility for the community. So I thank you for that. I would like to ask one favor, if it's at all possible. Could the commission come up with a sign that we can put up in that conservation area? Because one of the things that we see is that we're always trying to manage that area, but the average person doesn't realize that's conservation area. So is that possible?
Certainly, yeah. At a minimum, we could put up a sign that says conservation
area.
area,
Yeah.
which we do for other conservation land. I mean, we
got
won't say
these.
conservation land because it isn't technically conservation
Yeah.
land, but we could say conservation area.
Yeah.
That's a pretty standard thing that would go up, but we could certainly think of additional language. Also, you may know that there's going to be, hopefully, when there's funding, that the park nearby, Cook's Hollow. Thank you. Blanking is late. Cook's Hollow will be actually a lot of work will be going on in there to revamp it, and we might be able to tie in some signage with that as well.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
I have a
David
big sign in
White.
my garage David could use. Big metal sign
Oh, you have one? Okay.
You have one already? Wow. Great.
before.
See, ask and you shall receive.
Yes.
All right. Hey, so not to lose track here, let's focus on, we need that schedule. We need those milestones. David already is a little unsure. It's a half day of work tomorrow on Friday. Someone needs to get up and put that schedule together and communicate with David, because by the end of the day, I want him to be satisfied with when he needs to be out there and comfortable with the situation. So don't get another stop work order. Don't just start work and forget about these things we've asked for tonight. And the schedule and the milestones are most important in my mind. But David, please be in communication with these people tomorrow and get that finished.
But can I ask just to clarify so we don't have any confusion? So can we resume tomorrow morning working, or do you want to wait till David gets
No.
that information?
Start working, but I'm assuming that RAD is big enough to have somebody put that schedule together and work with David also.
But they have to put the filter
Yeah,
fabric.
we weren't scheduled tomorrow.
Okay.
Anyway.
Okay.
So tomorrow, everybody on my end is waiting for me after this meeting.
All right. Well, good.
So,
Right.
and we're gonna I'm
Well,
literally
then
gonna
let's
put this-
hammer this out tomorrow and then
Right.
be all set for Monday or when you get back. And
That's
as
the
far as just
idea.
shouting out stuff about what starts, David's going to be able to deal with that. So
Great.
let's move on to our next thing. Thank you very much. We're going to move
Thank you.
on at this moment.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks for your
Thank you
time,
very much.
guys.
Thank
So,
you.
so we're gonna have a quick water bodies working group update from David White.
Not much new. We're gonna meet next week again. Is Hills Pond open, David?
No, we went and took a water sample. It needs to get shipped off to the lab tomorrow, and then it needs to wait another week and be tested again before it can be lifted. That said, that harmful algal bloom is long gone. We'll be totally in the clear. It's just a matter of checking the boxes.
Okay, thank you.
And next
Kind of
on
like the
the,
fact that it's closed because then we don't have to worry about the fishing problem.
Well,
Just
that's one
saying,
problem, doesn't it?
just saying.
If it dissuades them, yes.
Okay, that's all I have from water bodies.
all right, thank you. CPA update from Brian McBride.
Right, so I don't think I've talked to y'all since we had the preliminary review. So there were way too many projects for the amount of money that the CPA has this year. I think there were, I don't know, $4.5 million requested for a $2.2 million budget. So they've implemented, against my vote, a procedure where applicants should only submit one if they're submitting for more than $100,000. So they're trying to choke back the number of applications for the year, and that may affect some of the habitat-related ones that David has applied for. And David and I haven't talked in detail about this, but he did apply for the conservation land improvements that we talked about. So that was a significant ask of $450,000. And there's also Cook's Hollow, 21 Pond Lane, Garden 250. So there's a lot coming on this sort of segment this year, which is great. There's a lot of great projects, but there's not much money. So I think this is going to be the big question in the coming weeks and months is how does the CPA committee deal with an overabundance of good projects and not enough money? David, I don't know if you want to add anything.
So Brian, do they still fund the separate buckets for conservation and whatnot? And do they fund them each year, or those also used completely up each year?
There's no carryover, if that's what you mean, Chuck, but they're required by law to provide at least 10% to each of the three buckets, which I think are housing, historic preservation, and open space. So they have to fund 10% of the budget to each one of those. After that, anything goes. They can allocate it.
And that doesn't carry over? Those buckets don't keep the 10% in it for the following year?
No, it's a fresh start every year.
But so
Open space
that,
includes rec too.
yeah, so
Open space
they
is
would
under
have
rec.
to, yeah, so they would give all the money to rec or conservation at that point.
Right. They'd have to give 10% to some open space projects, recreation or conservation, and then but that's only 30% of the budget once those three things are taken care of. The other 70% just gets allocated based on which projects they feel are most appropriate and attractive.
Okay. Is that how you finished?
Yeah, unless
with your
David
report?
has
Any other
anything to
que-
add. David did a lot of great work putting these things
Oh,
together.
and Susan's hands up.
I just had
too.
a question about that. So you said they're encouraging each department to just put in one request if it's over 100,000. So can David split his request? Like one request comes from
Yeah,
conservation and
I-
one request comes from planning and one request comes from open space. They're separate departments.
Well, for sure, I think the Conservation Commission request should be separate because it is a
Yeah,
conservation
because
request.
we lumped them together because it didn't matter.
Right.
But why? But if they're going to make this determination that there's a limit,
After submission, right? Yeah. I mean,
so
David,
let's
I don't know
change
if there's
it.
another
Can we
break you
change
could
it?
do as well.
Can we
you
change
know?
it? I don't know. Anyway, you can talk to David about that, but
Okay.
that's what.
Yeah, there are some procedural/administrative questions that are still outstanding, and I've asked some of those questions, haven't gotten answers yet. I'll include that one among them. It's something that Brian and I touched on when we chatted, but again, it's nothing substantial yet.
Okay, thank you.
That's all.
Are we ready to move on? Okay, tree committee update from Sarah Alfaro Franco.
our next tree committee is next Wednesday. So
All right. Back to David, spotlight on David. Any updates with your meeting with the recreational department?
Yeah, actually, let's see, probably three. We went out on a site visit, Jackie and I, last Friday. We did the Menominee Rocks playground pre-construction review. Everything there is great, and they're getting started on that project. Make it 4 updates because new assistant director in the recreation office, Courtney Duggan, and she is going to be overseeing some of the projects that the commission / department have on the go. So I think she'll be the new point of contact for Menominee Rocks Park, possibly others. Park and Rec took up the question of invasives removal permitting this week. I haven't heard yet how that went, but I did receive a copy of the proposal that Natasha gave to them, which I found satisfactory. I thought it was a good approach and not too burdensome, not too much red tape. Third thing would be, we've been exploring using old CPA funds to repair the path that's by Pond Park that's been falling apart, and Natasha Whedon, the director, has been in contact with the vendor that installed that, trying to get a quote, and also trying to figure out whether that rubber, the pervious surfacing that was installed there, could just be taken out and replaced with stone dust with the amount of money that we have. So that was 2 weeks ago. I got an update about them looking to get together last week in order to go over budget numbers, and I haven't got a decision on how she wants to approach that yet, but naturally it'll have to come back before the commission, whatever winds up being done. So I think that's all 4.
Oh,
Sure. And I think the last thing that I'll update the commission on is that so it's Julie Wyman sent out an email about a budget for FY27 and asked that all committees put in a pretty brief description and a dollar amount for their budget. And I had a meeting with David and Claire, and we decided that we would like to put in a budget for some incidental material that the commission can buy, signs and whatnot. I'm sure David's got a list of things, but we also put a dollar amount on our staffing needs. So we were able to at least submit that budget on time, and we'll see what happens from this point forward. So unless David has some additional update on that budget, I think we wanted to move on to our first hearing.
I'll just say it was $1,000 that we requested for incidentals, and then $3,000 for staffing, and that staffing number was determined by how much we have in the bank versus wanting to keep Jackie on for a full calendar year. So we looked for 2.5 months worth of salary for Jackie in the budget. Hopefully we just get that in fee revenue anyway, but wanted to see if we could secure it from operational budget.
I would
Yeah.
just like to, thank you for that, and thank you for trying to get Jackie to stay on. I think she's been doing a great job, and would like to have her stay.
Yeah, they're really small numbers that we're dealing with, but there was a lot of pushback in the towns looking at an override and all that, and so it wasn't a great, well-received conversation. I think I just dug in and said, why don't we try? And I was hoping for more like a $10,000 number plus the 1,000, but I'm happy with it at least being on the list so we can move forward from that point next year. Enough said about the $4,000 budget. Okay, so our first hearing tonight is DEP file number 91 -0372. It's a notice of intent. It's a continuing notice of intent for 40 Park Ave. It's continued from August 23rd, 2025. The commission will hold a public hearing to consider a notice of intent to repair the loading dock at 40 Park Ave and Arlington. Area protections to be altered include the riverfront, the buffer zone, adjacent upland resource area, and associated with the bank to Mill Brook. And with that, I don't know who we have here, but oh, there's Nick. Nick, can you introduce yourself for the record and introduce anyone else who is here with you?
Sure. Thanks everybody. Nick Scoley from VHB, civil engineer. I also have with me Taylor Donovan, who's the environmental scientist, also from VHB, and then Rick Valarelli, who's representing the applicant from the ownership side. I think from last time we were continued, there was a couple questions regarding the previous enforcement order and then the disturbance and the degradation. So is it all right if I share my screen and work through those
Sure.
two pieces?
And you put to a response to the comments that we asked at the last meeting. Is that what you're going to go over? Because that's what I was going to ask you to do.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Nick.
So let me go to this guy. So I think the first one was there was the previous enforcement order and there was an ask for just an overlay. Are we double counting any of that with our stormwater improvements and whatnot? So put this figure together to show what the enforcement order was, so you can kind of see the trees and everything in color here. 10 trees, some shrubs along here, 4 shrubs in red, 4 shrubs here. And I kind of highlighted what was kind of double counted. So we've since updated those plans and this was submitted. So I pulled all of that area out. So that's maintain the existing restoration area, pull that out, don't count any of that from a stormwater perspective. And just confirmed for commission and working with engineering that this is where we are. We still meet peak rates, peak volumes are still a decrease just based on converting that existing disturbed area, not including the restoration, to a landscape area. So that was the first one. And again, and I guess this is just a picture of that disturbed area. And Taylor, feel free to hop in, but I know there was some questions on was this degraded or not, and just wanted to share these photos of what the area looked like. And we're taking basically I can draw on this, basically taking this area here to a 4-foot reveal just so a truck can pull up to this dock, and sort of the back of the truck is at this level. So removing this material and then landscaping around here, and then same thing on this other side, removing that material so it's a 4-foot reveal, but then landscaping this area as well, and just sort of cleaning up this area that needs a little love. So Taylor, I don't know if you have anything else you want to work through with any of the other responses. Those are my 2 big pieces I just wanted to talk through. I will say I've been working with Wolfgang at the engineering department, still waiting for final sign off from them on the stormwater piece and confirming we met all of they had some initial comments, added everything to the plan. I just haven't heard back from them yet. reached out to them a couple days ago, just waiting for that final response. So happy to answer whatever questions you guys may have on that piece, but I'm trying to track that down on my end as well.
Yeah, so Nick, I think one of the questions that the commission asked, and it was in your response, was that you've determined that the project proposes 780 square feet of permanent impact, and you've come up with a number of you've calling it restoration, but I think it's 2 to 1, so it might be mitigation. And you've shown that you've met that at 2 to 1, and you're a little bit over at 1,660 square feet. And are those numbers correct that I just recited there?
That is my understanding, yes.
Yeah, so I just wanted to bring that up also.
Yep.
Is there anything left to your presentation tonight? If not, I'm going to turn to the commission for questions.
Nope, happy to answer whatever anyone may have.
I see that Nathan, sorry. Yeah, Susan's hand is up. Susan Chapman.
I'm getting together with Nathaniel here, huh?
Yeah.
So thank you for, Chuck, I was going to ask the question of exactly what the square foot of permanent impact versus mitigation. And I would call it mitigation because I don't think it's restoration. Also, because of the types of plantings, it seems more like mitigation. However, the 2 to 1 is met, so I'm satisfied with that. And I appreciate your responsiveness and removing the double counting. I am concerned about taking any actions prior to the town engineer giving their stamp of approval. We often ask the town engineer on projects that are a little complex to put their stamp of approval on it. So that was the only comment I had there.
Sure. David Kaplan has his hand up.
I think you're muted, Dave.
Sorry, the button's not working, or I'm not working. So I had a question. It still looks like the the mitigation area is still slated to be loamed and seeded. Is that's still the case?
So we were showing that on the plan. Happy to talk about that with everybody, and I think Rick is online from the ownership side to discuss whatever you guys want there. We're happy to put. So happy to work with you. Let us know, and fair game for anything. We started with that, but whatever you guys want, we're happy to put there.
Yeah, I just think being this close to the resource, and I think there'd be much more habitat value if you could entertain some sort of native landscape that would, maybe lower maintenance, wouldn't require mowing or nutrients or aerating, to maintain it as a like a grassed area. So but I'm open to ideas of what it could be. It could be shrubs, it could be like some wildflower mix. But yeah, I guess I would like to see a native landscape go in. But I'm willing to, entertain ideas around that.
Here.
I agree.
That was my only comment. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions from the commission? Any questions from anyone attending tonight's meeting that would like to speak as an abutter to this project? Just use the raise hand function. And seeing none, I don't
Morgan.
I don't know if he's in a butter. I have to get back to the commission to get him involved. And so I do see David, so I'm going to close off public discussion. And David Morgan, please.
I wanted to suggest that as you're considering the plantings for this area, recognizing that there's been a sort of continuous issue with invasives, and probably there's a decent seed bed in there, or maybe leftover rhizomes, whatever, planting really densely would be advisable to try and outcompete that as best as possible. So wanted to offer that point of advice.
All right. So it looks like we're waiting for the engineering department. I'm going to ask the commission if that could be resolved with a condition, and along with the native planting and landscape of shrubs and wildflower mix, could that be resolved with a condition and maybe some other way to move this forward? Commissioners?
I'd also like to talk in terms of maintenance of the landscaping.
Well, we should require our standard 2 or 3 year survivability that we typically have as our boilerplate condition
Invasive
in
control.
situations. Yeah, and invasives. Yeah, in the same area where they have planted, they would have to monitor for invasives. And that's just a standard condition. I did a poor job of explaining it, but we do have one. So back to the question, is this something that we can move tonight on? We're gonna wait for the engineering department and possibly a plan on native planting.
I hate to say it, but I think we really do need to review the landscaping plan since we didn't get a concrete proposal and discussion from the applicant on that. And given also combined that we're waiting to hear from the engineering.
To see a plan, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I hate to say it, but
Nick, I know you have people at VHB that are knowledgeable about that. Would that be a difficult ask to get a planting plan in this area that densely put in, shrubs and natives, to kind of beef up the habitat? Is that something you feel VHB can do?
Yeah. Yeah, I can work with that and work with Rick and figure that out on our end and submit something to the commission. Not a problem.
Okay, that'd be great.
Nick, do you have the LEC plan?
that's the
Because
enforcement order
it's
plan.
being
Yeah.
it's being planted in the same area. You could build off of that plan if you brought that into in-house.
Yeah, so that was the that we actually brought that in as part of the overlay that
Okay,
we submitted. So I will share that with them and work with the owner and Rick here, and we can get something to you guys in the next couple days.
sounds good. All right. So with that, we'd like your permission to continue to our next meetings on November 20th. Is that correct? And so
So that would be something submitted in a week before that, correct?
Yes.
yes,
Wednesday before, I believe. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, we can do that.
And hopefully you'd
By
have
the
the
12th.
engineering stamp of approval as well.
David
So we
Morgan
don't have
might
to
be able to help
continue it again.
with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The goal.
okay.
I'll
So
make a
with
motion to
that,
continue
thanks.
to the 20th.
Have a second?
Second.
David Kaplan was the second. So Susan Chapnick,
Yes.
David White,
Yes.
Brian McBride,
Yes.
Nathaniel Stevens,
Yes.
David Kaplan,
Yes.
and Chuck Teroni says yes. All right. Thank you for waiting so long tonight, and we'll see you at the next hearing.
Yeah, thank you everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Dare I say we're at the end of the agenda?
Wow.
That's what I see.
There.
Okay, so let's get out of here. Anything else from the commission that they want to discuss? No, let's all just say goodbye and adjourn, and everyone wave unanimous. Bye now.
Bye.
Farewell.